What is up, everybody? My name is Frostie here. Welcome back to another Magic the Gathering Arena deck tech. We are tackling the newest, the greatest, the best. Well, maybe not the best, but we are tackling Blue-Black Mirari Conjecture. I cannot take credit for this deck. Credit to this deck goes to Ali Aintrazi, who took inspiration from Gabriel Nassif's Blue-Black Conjecture in paper and turned it into an arena monster. He wrote a whole article about it. I'll link to the article below in the description. I would definitely give that a read to see what the thought process was going into this deck. I'll go over some of my thoughts on the deck, as well as weaknesses, strengths, and what changes I would make to it. If you guys have watched our Blue-Red Conjecture, you know my thoughts on a lot of these cards and my thoughts on OTKs. I love them. I think they're really important to card games. I think they're needed just to keep decks honest overall. But land base is pretty good. It did not have really a struggle in terms of getting our colors or flooding out too much. I think the 3x Field of Ruins is a little much. I would probably want one more dual land there, but I can understand the need of Field of Ruin to deal with certain lands like Escanta and Arch has been pretty crazy how much use you get out of those lands over the course of a game. So we'll start all the way here on the left with our 1-drops, 3x Ops, 3x Duress, 2x Fungal Infections. Duress, a must-have, I think, in any sort of black shell that deals with a tempo rather than control. Dealing with counterspells, dealing with Approach of the Second Sun, Planeswalkers. You don't really have a whole lot of answers to everything. You know, yes, we're playing 4x Contempts and 1 Never to deal with Planeswalkers, but if we can rip them out of their hand, I would much rather do that than dealing with it once it hits play. The Fungal Infection has been great for dealing with the Elf, Llanowar Elves being back in Standard now, as well as dealing with some mono red shenanigans, Kenra being a 2-1, and dealing with the Firebrand on 1. Just having that extra blocker, just something to slow them down, has been very, very useful. I don't think I would jump up the number of Fungal Infections. I think 2 is fine. Having 1 in your hand is useful, but it's not a card I would want too many of. And the shenanigans that we can pull with Blink of an Eye and Mirari Conjecture, we can always get 1 back if need be. I don't think it's that big of a deal to increase the number of those here. I think 2 is just fine. Jumping over to the 2-drops here, 4x Blink of an Eye, must have. I think that's the perfect number for this deck. This deck is all built around bouncing back Conjecture, getting the most value out of it as possible. The interactions that you get here, unlike the Blue-Red Exodia deck where you're just building towards an end goal of getting either 9 mana or 6 mana depending on your board state, hitting stage 3 of Conjecture and just killing your opponent at once, we're more than happy just kind of taking our time and controlling the entire game. We don't need Conjecture to pop at 3, and the fact that we're playing 4 means we can use 1 or 2 of them just as value conjectures. Just get them to 3, let them pop, draw a bunch of cards, double search with Mastermind's Acquisition, or double Contempt, or anything like that. It's just the last conjecture gets to stage 3 is what we actually use to kill our opponent. And we don't always have to use that. We can just use it for value overall. Search for Azcanta, I would like to pump this number up to 2. I think it's too important in blue control shells to have on turn 2. And especially in decks like this where you're searching for specific answers or specific pieces to a combo deck, I think it's too important. I would like to bump that number up to 2. 2x Cast Down, 2x Moment of Craving, that was the split that was chosen. After playing it for a while, I believe I would rather do a 3-1 split. Cast Down has certainly held its weight, but I feel like the life gain is more important. There were many situations I ran into where much prefer having the life than killing a creature. And it's too important in the mono-red matchup, which was, in my opinion, the worst matchup, which it tends to always be the worst matchup. I would much rather have a Moment of Craving there over a Cast Down, but 2 to split was fine. Now we have a 4-1 split, Secrets of the Golden City over Divination. Now, unlike my thoughts on Secrets of Golden City in Blue-Red Exodia, I think it's actually perfect for this deck. In Exodia, we're looking to save our stage 3 to just kill our opponent. In here, we can just let Conjecture pop on 3 and just draw 6 cards. This deck is more than fine with taking that value, and I think it works well in this shell. I don't know if the divination is necessarily needed. I think that could be cut for another card. I never found myself starved for resources or starved for cards, especially considering we can just stage 2 the Conjecture and return Secrets of the Golden City anyway. So that's a cut there I would probably make. Dropping down here to 2 other singletons, 1 Doomfall, 1 Golden Demise. Thoughts on these? I would much rather have more Golden Demise than a Doomfall here. Doomfall, while good, there was never a situation where I could sort of get my opponent with them only having 1 creature in play to use the exile effect on, say, a Carnage Tyrant or a Lyra or anything to that effect, and casting it on 3 to hit their hand. There are other things I would rather be doing. But Doomfall, I think, is a necessary evil in these types of decks. I think it's required to have specific answers to certain creatures, as well as another exile effect for the hand. Some of the cards that we would cut here, you know, say we cut down on the Fungal Infections, bump up the Golden Demise, cut the Divination, bump on the Golden Demise. I think that would help some of the matchups that we were running into, specifically mono red, as well as some of the green-white token style decks. But up until that point, you know, the numbers here all felt good. Never felt starved for any resources. Now, this is a card I would love to ask why. When I first saw it in the list, I'm like, okay, it's kind of a neat card. I was looking forward to playing with it. It seems like it's powerful, but I've had it in play and doesn't do anything. It lets us see our top card, but never was I in a situation where I had, you know, oh, 6 mana here, 8 mana here, let me exile the top 2 cards because they're 2 lands, I don't need them. I felt like I was always tapped down or could use my mana for something more like a blink of an eye, end of turn, or contempt or something to that nature, and Precognition Field just sort of felt useless. I would much rather have either a Primal Amulet or an As Foretold to sort of help accelerate our win conditions. I would love to know why this was necessarily included. It would be my first cut would be cutting Precognition Field and adding Primal Amulet more than likely. Jumping down here as we get into our removal spells, big removal spells. 4x Vraska's Contempt, 1 Never to Return, must-haves in any sort of blue-black control deck. You have to be able to deal with Planeswalkers and you have to be able to deal with Hazoret. These are one of the best ways to do that. It also helps that Mirai's Conjecture continuously bounces them back to your hand, being able to return, so you can get Never back, use that again. The first part of Mirai's Conjecture, returning Vraska's Contempt to your hand, and then using Blink to bounce it back and rinse, repeat. Frustrate your opponent to no end. Now we get into the win conditions. Mastermind's Acquisition, the favorite of mono black control decks and an awesome tutor, being able to either search through your deck for something like a Mirai Conjecture, or search through our sideboard for ways to win the game, or additional utility cards. So that's a good way to jump over here to the sideboard, and we'll see. Let's jump back to a different layout here. A little easier for you guys to see. 1 Scarab Feast, 2 X Negates, 1 Moment of Craving, Sorcerer's Spyglass, Wizard's Retort, Bontu's Last Reckoning, Commit, Kumena's Awakening, Eldritch Reborn, Scarab God, Lich's Mastery, 1 Enchanting Melody, 1 Pull from Tomorrow, and 1 Torment of Hailfire. Now, obviously, Torment of Hailfire is how we win the game majority of the time. However, depending on the situation, Lich's Mastery can win us the game. Scarab God can also win us the game. The rest of these are just utility cards. The reason why there's so many utility cards here is because if you cast Mastermind's Acquisition with Stage 3 Conjecture, you get to pick 2 cards. So a lot of times I'll get Torment of Hailfire plus a negate, so that we can do that the following turn. Torment of Hailfire on its own can win the game, but when doubled up with Conjecture on stage 3, kind of puts it OTT. The rest of these cards are just sort of normal acquisition style targets. Sorcerer's Spyglass probably being the odd one out, but the rest of these cards have done extremely well when I've gotten them. Pull from Tomorrow is more of just sort of, I need resources style card. Probably cut that for a Cruel Reality, because there are many situations where I wish I had a Cruel Reality to go get, as my opponent would have no out to it. The rest of these cards have done very, very well when we've gotten them. Overall thoughts on this deck, I think it is a good alternative to Exodia that has a much more solid game plan against aggro decks. That was the one thing I noticed, when I play them back to back is, okay, I just sort of died on turn 4 or 5 with Exodia. If the game went on longer, I was able to win. With this game, or with this deck, we could survive a lot longer, and we weren't really rushing because we had so many resources with Conjecture and Blink of an Eye to go get anything we really needed. You just felt much more in control of the game. A lot of times, too, you felt sort of dirtily. You felt like you just kind of spun your wheels in place and just would barely hold on to the game. But that's a lot of times the more fun process, right, is to hang on with a thread, be under 5 life, and know you could sort of lose at any moment to be able to pull out that win at a couple life with a stage 3 Conjecture into a Torment of Hellfire and kill your opponent. But this has been a ton of fun. I'm going to work on this deck a lot more. I'm going to make some changes to the card selection. Definitely going to try and fit in a Primal Amulet somewhere in here. I feel like that is necessary to what it wants to do. It also allows you to double up on the removal spells much more frequently if you flip the amulet, and I think that is key to surviving in this deck. That's it for Blue-Black Mirari Conjecture. Props to Ali Aintrazi for building this list. Shoutouts to Gabriel Nassif as well for coming up with the original list in paper. I'm looking forward to seeing what we can do with it, what changes we can make. If there are changes that you think we should make to the deck, feel free to hit me up in the comments below. And be sure to check out our live stream when we'll be playing this deck. Don't know when the next time we're going to play it. I'm going to put in some work off to the side, see if I can get to a more solid state, and then we'll take a crack at a couple quick constructed queues. But that's it for me, guys. Thanks so much for watching. My name is Frostie, and I'll see you next time.